Chapter 140. Once he saw that Either had put on his gloves, Kishir turned to Nathan Zuckerman, who had been standing quietly behind him, and ordered him to fetch some snacks. It was an unusually mundane command to give to a man said to be the continent's greatest swordsman, but he complied without a hint of dissatisfaction, stepping back discreetly. Well, let's begin our discussions that we need to tackle now. First, about these people called the Star of Nagran. Since the incident of the Apeto house yesterday, Kishir had been working non-stop. Even when unexpected events unfolded, he neither blinked nor hesitated, relentlessly rushing the Apeto house. Simultaneously, he was striving to extract everyone, including Revlin and Dandelion, as well as the two awakeners belonging to the Star of Nagran, whom Either had protected. At the end of an all-night offensive, when the Apeto Duke finally declared that he would refrain from stepping out for some time, Kishir finally allowed himself to sit. Though he must have desired rest, his eyes remained clear and bright, seemingly immune to fatigue. Observing him, Either found himself faintly reminded of his past self, who used to gaze off into the distance with tired eyes. It was a minute difference, but a vast change nonetheless. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Nothing. Caught off guard, Either quickly lowered his head and regained his usual expression. Fortunately, Kishir didn't probe further and immediately began his disclosure. "Based on the information shared by you and the awakeners we have rescued from the Apeto house, we plan to initiate a primary exploration into the Star of Nagran." Nathan confirmed what you heard. Nagran does indeed mean paradise in the southern language. "I see. It certainly seems there's some connection with the south, but the south is a place where understanding the political climate is more difficult than in other regions. For now, we plan to interrogate the two you have captured once they have woken up and calmed down. We need to know who he is and understand the purpose and direction of their organization." The two men Either had knocked out with a precise hit to the mandible were still unconscious, quarantined in an empty room. Were their names Gale and Doyle? Considering the words spoken right before Nahan disappeared, they could likely come to reclaim their comrades at some point. Of course, he had no intentions of handing them over easily, but it would be beneficial to glean as much information as possible for the cavalry. "May I take responsibility for the interrogation of those two?" "You? After all, I was the one who captured them." Kishir looked at Either's face for a moment before replying with a faint smile. "Very well. But remember, it should only be a conversation. Do not intimidate them. For that part, I'll ask Kana for help." "That's a good idea." With her ability to read information, Kana had a knack for quickly befriending strangers. Her ability to rapidly break down emotional barriers would undoubtedly be beneficial in this situation. "And regarding the awakeners we have brought back from the Apeto house..." "Yes," Either responded, recalling the awakeners he had saved and bought from the prayer house. Among the 12 awakeners who were thought to be the alphas, only 5 turned out to be true alphas. Among those, 4 had entered the mating period. The remaining awakeners had been part of Beltriel's research, in which he forcibly induced second gender manifestation. The notion of forcibly manifesting the second gender into an alpha or omega was, to Either's knowledge, unprecedented, even in the future. The thought of how many had been sacrificed to commit such a reckless act made him regret that Beltriel had not lost his mind sooner, before paying the price for it. After those in heat get through the period and recover, those who want to return to their hometown will be sent back, and those who don't, if they wish, will be allowed to work here. Here? You mean, as the lands and buildings of the cavalry will continue to increase, we need to continuously recruit people. After all, we plan to fill most of the positions here with awakeners from the start. I have already assigned Nathan with the related tasks, but in the future, you and the deputy commanders will also do so. I understand. You're not surprised at this reckless plan? What was there to be surprised about? Though currently there were barely any administrative or managerial work to attend to, there was no choice but to need people to handle such tasks in the future. Those who understood and could best aid a cavalry composed entirely of awakeners were, of course, those with the same powers. In his past life, Kishir had done the same thing, and as the size of the cavalry grew, it was clear his decision was right. Yudhir responded in a word, embedding all his emotion in it. I don't think it's reckless if it's something the commander is doing. At those words, Kishir was silent for a moment. After a pause, the corners of his lips drew a graceful arc upward. Sometimes I feel like you're a tempting demon who came to tempt me. Temptation, you say? When Yudhir questioned in disbelief, Kishir let out a low chuckle. You keep on saying sweet words. When did I ever? No. I didn't mean to flatter. What I'm trying to say is, I know, no need to explain. Looking at Yudhir, who was frowning as if trying to gloss over the situation with a joke again, Kishir murmured with a smile. It's strange. I, who have always learned to doubt myself when you speak in such a manner, feel baselessly reassured that what I'm doing is moving along the right path. That's because it's actually moving in the right direction. See, there you go again. Saying that, Kishir leaned his chin on his hand and exhaled a small laugh. His staring red pupils seemed to pierce through Yudhir's soul. How fascinating. I wonder where someone like you came from. From the start, you were like that. You have always had an inexplicable conviction, as if you already knew where my journey was headed. At the unfamiliarly low voice, Yudhir momentarily hesitated. He could vividly feel Kishir's gaze slowly scanning him from his face to his toes. He looked away to avoid reaching to the gaze, but still, his voice penetrated clear and unescapable into his ears. I wish I could be the one to answer your inexplicable conviction. Only then did Yudhir turn his eyes back. Beneath the shade cast by golden eyelashes, he reluctantly opened his mouth to those beautiful eyes shining like a rising sun. Do you perhaps doubt me? Yudhir had been trying to keep his identity hidden to the best of his ability, but if Kishir was to suspect him, the circumstances certainly allowed for it. Of course, he probably harbored more plausible suspicions than the outrageous conjecture of Yudhir returning from the future. Despite this, he found it difficult to meet Kishir's gaze directly. Well, it's hard to doubt you when you are so committed to me and the cavalry. Kishir's response was succinct. Yudhir blinked a few times before replying slowly. What does that have to do with anything? That in itself is enough. After shutting down Yudhir's inquiry in a single phrase, Kishir casually steered the conversation back to work. Anyway, that's not our immediate concern. With the remaining festivities to wrap up and dragging Apeto back out of the house they have sequestered themselves in, we will be more than busy for one day. People had been saying that just by Apeto locking themselves in their mansion, Kishir and the Emperor had landed a significant blow, but Kishir made it clear he wasn't going to stop there. Do you plan to bring something else to light besides the statements of the Awakeners bought from the Apeto family? At Yudhir's question, Kishir responded as if he'd been waiting for it. Did you forget? I'm talking about the Harton case you reported. You said that 2 of the mercenary Awakeners hired by the Apeto family escaped. Yes, I remember. This morning, the Deputy Lord of Harton sent a letter saying they have found. In that case, I plan to bring all the Awakeners who are still in Horton, including those 2, to the capital for a trial. I have plenty of evidence gathered from before. I'm going to break the Apeto name so thoroughly that anyone who bears it won't be able to show their face for about 100 years. At his smooth yet resolute words, a faint shiver ran through Yudhir. He plans to bring down the Apeto family? In his previous life, Kishir had never hinted at such an intention, let alone voice it. But the man standing in front of him now was casually declaring that he would been gathering evidence for a long time. What was his intention for revealing this and telling him? Was he testing him because of their earlier conversation? Amidst a slight confusion, Yudhir cautiously spoke. I beg your pardon, but when you say from before, do you mean that you have always planned to overthrow the Apeto family? Not just the Apeto family. Kishir's answer was crisp. Every noble family and all those who parasitize the empire ineffectively are my targets for cleansing. This is just the beginning. At his enormous ambition, Yudhir was left speechless. Is he serious? As fanciful as it sounded to dream of world domination, Kishir was utterly calm. Amidst his confusion, Yudhir managed to steady his heart and open his mouth again.